Welcome into No Boundaries here on Sky Sport. Great to have you with us. We're down to 2. We have a final locked in at the T20 Cricket World Cup. South Africa against India. The Proteas through to their first Cricket World Cup final. India through to their first T20 World Cup final since 2014. To help me, Jeff McTaich pick over both semi-finals. Mitch McClenaghan in studio, good to see you, Mitch. And Mike Hesson beaming in from Dunedin. Gents, just your thoughts firstly on both semi-finals. Hess, I know you picked this final, so you can take credit for that. Well done to you. India, South Africa. But the first one this morning, let's get started with that. England against India. Your thoughts on that match, firstly?
Yeah, well, it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, obviously England won the toss, chose to bowl. There was plenty of rain around, so there was that potential of a shortened match. So the fact India were able to compose themselves around the rain breaks, I think, got them to a well above par score. You could sort of see the way the ball was holding in the surface that it was going to be challenging for England to come out and play the way they want to play. So in the end, very comprehensive win from India, and probably shows. As we said, 2 unbeaten sides heading to the finals, which is pretty fair reflection, I think.
What was your take on the last couple of days, Mitch?
Oh, it's exciting. I think it's great to have 2 unbeaten teams go through to the finals, as Mike touched on. Look, I think these games are won in moments and sometimes small moments. And I think right off the bat tonight, we saw that the drop catch off Rohit Sharma by Phil Salt, who was charging in a point off Jofra Archer, was a massive moment because Rohit Sharma's been the informed batsman for them in the last couple of games, and their whole side seems to go off his confidence at the top and the tone that he set. So that was huge. And then also in those conditions where it is a little bit slow and a little bit variable and bounce, sometimes you have to target one over and make sure you make it count. And that was tonight. It was Sam Curran's over where Rohit Sharma and Sky Suryakumar Yadav both went after him, and it took 19 off the 13th over. So it looks small, 2 small little moments, but they're quite significant in what the outcome was tonight.
19 off the 13th over, you mentioned that. Hess, Josh Butler said that as well. They probably gave them 20, 30, too many at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, after that second rain delay, they'd sort of held the game for a couple of overs. It was sort of 2 or 3 overs, like 3 and 4. And then they thought they'd squeeze an over as Sam Curran in, as Mitch has alluded to. And the shot of the day for me is the one off the front foot, opening the blade, over backward point for 6, which the only person I've ever seen that play that shot is Sky. And he's exceptional. Once you do that off a length ball that you think is pretty good, then you go searching. And that's exactly what Sam Curran did. He applied the pressure at the right time, and that got India back ahead of the game, I think. And even though you wouldn't say they flew over the line, because it was pretty tough surface to go out and start to hit from ball 1. So the fact that Rohit and Sky got out, within 2 overs of each other, gave England a bit of hope. And then there was that Hardik Pandya, a couple of 6s in a row, and then the 6 from Axar Patel probably just got them over the line in terms of a par score. And I think probably 15 to 20 is probably a pretty fair reflection from Josh Butler.
Yeah, India 171 for 7, England 103, India winning by 68 runs. Rohit, 57 again. Kohli missed out, but as Hess alluded to, Mitch, 47, Yadav, Pandya 23, Jadeja 17. You pick up 1 or 2 at the top, you give yourselves a sniff, but then you've got that whole middle order to come and they bat deep.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're playing 8 batsmen. You've got Jadeja coming in at 8. Axar came in behind him today, and they actually promoted Jadeja. So they've got a lot of flexibility in their order as well, and those guys are coming into form. I think Hardik Pandya's form, for India's confidence has been significant. He's really started to strike the ball nicely, and there has been a shift in the way that he is playing his cricket. And in the IPL, we've seen in the last couple of years, he's tried to move himself up the order to like a number 4 role and bat more like a batsman. And I think a clear role in this Indian setup has allowed him to come in and actually know he's going to come in at 5 or 6 and more of a finishing role and actually play that way. So his training, even his stance, all seems to be set up to be that striker that he once was a few years back.
Nick Knight has talked about the hard act to follow of following Owen Morgan as England captain. Josh Butler came out, he had a clear plan, he wanted to set the tone, he wanted to take on Bumrah. Do you think it was, on reflection, that the right call? Did he pick that correctly?
Oh, look, I think Josh Butler's a good captain, but he's not the same as Owen Morgan. I think he's quite structured in terms of how he likes to use his bowlers. I think he pretty much always uses Adil Rashid and Livingston through the middle. He doesn't really bowl off spinners to right-handers. He doesn't sort of play that gamble card, whereas Owen Morgan at times reads the game and can adjust, maybe bring Archer back for an over earlier on if he needs to break a partnership. Whereas I think Josh Butler's pretty scripted in terms of how he operates from that perspective. From a batting point of view, I mean, he had to take the game on in the power play. I mean, I think that's what he had to do. The fact that it didn't work and himself and Salt got out, that's the product of chasing an above par score, where I guess you got to go a bit harder.
Yeah, a really good point there, actually, Hess, in terms of structure. Definitely more structured than Owen Morgan was. And he did speak about in the post-match conference about maybe he should have bowled Moeen Ali in that fixture and even to the right-handers because of the way the surface was playing. And those small things as a skipper are quite significant at the end of the day. We saw in the game, one of the South African games where Markram ended up bowling himself 4 overs and they bowled 12 overs of spin because of the conditions of the wicket, and they left Rabada right until the end and he only bowled 2 overs. So those things as a skipper on the field, you have to make those adjustments, and I don't think Josh made those adjustments tonight.
Yes, were you surprised with the absence of Moeen Ali?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you've got cross breezes like you have there, you've got a slow wicket where sometimes it stays down. It's a risk reward. And for guys, the right-handers to take on Moeen Ali, it's not like he's not effective against right-handers. It can be a bit of a myth. And he is a good, experienced bowler. And if they could have got 2 to 3 overs out of him, it would have given them so much more luxury towards the back end in terms of who he wanted to operate. And if he got one more wicket through the middle, the game could have changed. Shivam Dubé's not in great touch. He would have been able to have a left-hander there that he would have been able to bowl to. I just think it was just too scripted. And, I think, Mitch's point, I think we've got the 2 best captains in the final as well. Not only the 2 best bowling attacks, but the 2 best captains. Because, Aiden Markram has completely changed things depending on how the first 2 or 3 overs have operated in a game. And that's what you want from your captain, to be able to read the situation.
India media guys were questioning and the number of spinners he was taking over to this World Cup. I think you could say he's vindicated from his selection decisions, but you look at that performance against England, Kuldeep Yadav 3, Bumrah got a couple, but Axar Patel, another man of the match performance with 3 wickets. How impressive was that, Mitch?
Oh, massively. Look, first and foremost on the squad selection, it was almost as if this squad was selected for this game, this semi-final in Guyana. They knew they probably wanted to play 3 spin options, and they wanted to have at least another spinner in their squad if one was out of form. But you're right, Axar Patel was impressive, and he has been for some time. And when you look at it, how well he's performed, you've got to look at the role that he's fulfilling. And he's not doing the easy overs. He's not doing the middle overs like Jadeja or Kuldeep Yadav, where you do have the guys out on the boundary, where you've got a little bit more luxury to miss. He's got to be very wily in the power play. Often he's under pressure like he was tonight, and his change of pace throughout this tournament so far and his ability just to outfox the batsman has been significant at the top.
Yes, I want to talk about England and where they go now, defending champions knocked out. I suppose you'd have to make the semi-finals to consider the tournament a par, but they're a bit ropey in the group stages as well. Perhaps not in the situation they were around 2015 in terms of rebuilding. Where are they at the moment? And over the next sort of 12 months, perhaps what tweaks do they need to change? Will we see Josh Butler relinquish the role? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, they haven't had a great 12 months, to be fair, in white ball cricket, or probably even 18 months. They've been pretty average, even in bilateral series. So there's been plenty of pressure on, Josh Butler and Matthew Mott, who have come in, as the white ball coach as well. So, they did win the T20 but in Australia, but since then it's been pretty hard work. So they're an ageing side. They've got an interesting balance of a lot of guys that are probably just over the hump from a performance perspective. And they've got a few young guys coming through, the likes of Will Jacks, who didn't get probably as many opportunities as he would have liked. So, you think of, Phil Salt's pretty new on the scene. Johnny Bairstow's still got plenty of years to come, but, Sam Curran's still young, but you wouldn't say he's probably at his best at the moment. So I think there's a bit of a rethink in terms of how they want to operate. Josh Butler, he is a fine player. He's one of the very best in the world and continues to be so, but he's quite a serious captain, and as I said, he's quite structured. So whether they think they've got somebody there who could potentially take them through to the next World Cup, bring a little bit more creativity to that lineup could be helpful. They're always going to have a production line of players because their system allows them to do that. But I think they also need someone who can, as I said, read the situation well on the field.
Okay, guys, let's look at the other semi-finals. South Africa are through over Afghanistan, and Aidan Markram talked about it, Mitch. It was, in the end, it proved to be a pretty good toss to lose. Yeah,
great toss to lose. I think both, anyone who'd seen the way these two teams have played throughout the tournament probably thought that both teams were going to look to bat first. South Africa because they've been shaky with the bat when they've been chasing, and then Afghanistan because they rely so heavily on that opening partnership, and that opening partnership has been superb. Gurbaz and Shadan have been exceptional throughout this whole tournament. 442 runs at the top. It's the most by any partnership in a T20 World Cup. So phenomenal, but it also showed how reliant they were throughout the tournament on those two at the top. And while they have faced conditions like that against Australia where the ball moved around, that was probably another level. That wicket was very, very difficult, and we saw there was a massive advantage for South Africa to be able to break that partnership, because what we saw against New Zealand and Australia and previous games is that opening partnership got off to 100-run starts. Both games in the 14th over, they were 103 and 106 for one or none. So they were exceptional at the top, and that's why they got so far in the tournament.
Here's 16 for 1 Afghanistan, and then really it just all fell apart, 28 for 6 at one point. But there was Mitch has talked about moments in games. There perhaps was a moment there when Rashid, he had a beautiful cover drive, another shot square of the wicket as well. And you thought maybe just if he'd had enough support around him, but by that stage that the damage was done. The whole top order was knocked over, and he just ran out of partners.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a cameo player, and he's someone who, if he comes in and plays a role like that, great. But he certainly needed far more substance from the top order. And, we talked about potentially them playing Zazai at the top just to give him another batsman, because they're very short. They basically got the two that Mitch has alluded to, and then the rest is pretty much, middle order cameo players. There's not, Omazai can play an innings of substance, but, he's probably more suited to playing that cameo innings as well. So that's a real work on for Afghanistan. They've got, they had 9 bowling options, and they batted to sort of Rashid at 8, but just the quality of batsmanship, and that's something that they're going to have to look at. Because clearly, they kept playing the all-rounder because they didn't feel like they had a batsman that was worthy of a spot. So it's a work on for Jonathan Trott and his team to try and turn, 2 or 3 of those middle order sort of power players into players who can give you a little bit more substance against the best bowlers.
Okay, Mitch, if the middle order is an issue for Afghanistan cricket at the moment, yes, they've done wonderfully well at this tournament, but bolstering those middle order stocks, do you see players around the globe playing in different tournaments that could maybe fill those roles?
Not currently. I think Zazai is a good player, but he needs to open. He needs to take advantage of that power play. So the opening pair, he wasn't going to break that up. So they obviously didn't see him fitting at 3. I think Najibullah is a very good player as well. We just haven't seen the best of him in the last couple of years. So maybe he's on the downslide in terms of form in his career. So, yeah, look, they're going to have to find that. Going into this tournament and probably the One Day World Cup as well, we were saying, do they have the bowling stocks as a seaming bowling unit to be able to compete? And I think now they've filled that gap. I think Al-Haq and Faisal Farooqi are exceptional. Great new ball bowlers, good skills throughout the innings. And Omazai as well. We didn't see him bowl too much with the new ball this tournament, but he swings the ball and is a nice little bowler as well. So they've kind of filled those stocks. So now they've just got one more gap to plug.
A lot of the chat here is that this is India's Cricket World Cup to lose, but you can't take anything away from South Africa, the way they've played, unbeaten coming through. Shamsi talked about following that game, the balance in their unit. We've talked a lot about that on this show, but you look at Jansen, Rabada. He's beautiful to watch when he's bowling in that sort of form, and Shamsi coming in with a few wickets at the end. They've got threats at seam and spin, so there'll be no easy task for India.
Oh, like I said, I think it's the 2 best bowling attacks. And I think the beauty of the final is that it's played in Bridgetown. So the fact that the final's in Barbados, it will be the best wicket that we've seen. It'll be better than the 2 we've had the semi-finals on. So it will allow the batsmen to enter the game as well. And therefore, from a bowling point of view, you don't have the margin for error that you probably had in these 2 semi-finals. So, both bowling lineups will be challenged, and I think the batting lineups of both sides are finding some form. You know, that South Africa have played on some pretty average surfaces in America before they came over in New York, so they were able to just bang it in halfway down and chase down mediocre scores. They're going to actually have to put a decent score on the board and outplay India in all facets. And quite rightfully, India will be the favourites. But South Africa are a very good side. They're unbeaten for a reason. They've got a lot of good players at spin. You know, I think being able to play spin through the middle will be critical. You know, Miller's got better against spin. There's obviously 2 left-arm spinners, so he'll be an important player. And, you know, Heinrich Klaasen, in terms of him taking on or being able to deal with Kuldeep, I think will be critical as well. So how that South African middle order deal with the Indian spinners, I think will, you know, play a huge role in terms of who comes out on top in the final.
Yeah, bang on. It's going to be fascinating. You're right, Hess. South Africa's got some very good players with spin in the middle. Axar Patel, the man of the moment at the moment. His record against Klaasen is not good. So does Rohit Sharma keep him away from him? He strikes at 170, Klaasen, against Axar Patel in recent times. So that's a really a nice little matchup for South Africa. But they also match up really nicely with the ball. At the top, Rabada's got the wood over Rohit Sharma. He's got him out 4 times. Rohit only strikes at 120, so that's significant. We all know Virat Kohli is a little bit susceptible to a left arm who can swing the ball in and deck the ball away. So we know with the extra bounce of Janssen, that's going to come into play as well. So there's a lot of nice matchups, a lot of positives to take, but also on the other side, you've got guys like Maharaj, who they've really relied on in the middle phase and to be able to tie the innings and take a few wickets. And I think that's probably the most balanced Indian batting lineup that I've seen for some time, where they have strikers left hand, right hand, so they can actually mix up their order quite significantly. And Rishabh Pant and Shivam Dube, who hasn't really featured in this tournament so far significantly, I think are really nice matchups to be able to come in and have an impact against the Maharajas and the Shamsis.
Yes, we'll just finish up quickly on Afghanistan and perhaps what the immediate future looks like for them. Of course, they came off that game against Bangladesh. They had hardly any sleep. I think 4 hours sleep. Then they were on their way to the next venue, the next game for the semi-final. Obviously hyped up that they'd made it that far. How much of a part did that play in the performance, taking away from the fact that, you know, what we saw with the pitch? And secondly, those moments in the South Africa innings when they could have had Hendricks out on the boundary, but the catch wasn't taken, just short. And then obviously Markram as well. Rashid heard a noise. It showed up on Snicko. They didn't review. So maybe you had both top order batsmen out. Could have been a different game. And as I say, if they're a bit fresher, maybe that would have made a difference.
Look, possibly, but to be fair, they were outplayed. I mean, South Africa, on a wicket that just does a little bit and bounces, that the Afghanistan's technique from a batting point of view was exposed. Trying to defend, you know, less than 60, it's too hard, you know. And even though Faruqi and Naveen and Rashid, like, you've got a really good attacking lineup, you only need one partnership. And even if they got those 2 that you're referring to, you know, they still bat pretty deep, South Africa. So they might have stumbled over the line, but I still think, you know, they were a bit too good. I mean, Afghanistan will take a huge amount from this and probably confidence. Probably the fact that now they know that they can compete with the very best and they can beat them. And they beat New Zealand, they beat Australia, they beat Bangladesh, obviously, in key matches. So that will give them plenty of self-belief. And as, you know, Mitch and I have talked about, there's a few areas they need to tidy up heading into a one-day World Cup. You know, they need more of those players who can substance with the bat. If they can do that, then I think their bowling attack is exceptional.
OK, guys, let's talk about pressure. Pressure on South Africa and pressure on India. India, they get to the big stage. Recently, they haven't performed when they're there. First T20 Cricket World Cup final since 2014. First World Cup final for South Africa, Mitch. Shamsi had a chat to Dale Steyn at the ground. He was saying, look, this is for the past players as well, the guys that have been close before, the greats of the game who have worn the Proteas shirt. So who's the pressure on more? Is it on India or is it on South Africa?
Oh, the pressure's always on India because of the public and how much they live and ride on the results of Indian cricket. So there's a lot of pressure there, but I think the setup that they've got there with Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma leading that side, they don't really talk about that expectation as much and talk about the process. And it's a nice little shift for that side and trying to take the emotion out of it. And then on the polar opposite side, South Africa are a very emotional side. And they ride high on their emotions, and you see them go up and down throughout a game quite significantly. So I think the external pressure is definitely on India. I think the internal pressure will come down heavily on South Africa.
There was no one more emotional, was there, when he was playing at the highest level than Dale Steyn when he got wickets. But is that the key for South Africa? They've got to go out and just have the passion and just kind of play on a hunch against this Indian side?
Well, it's kind of the way they operate, isn't it? As a team, they are an emotional bunch, but I think they've actually got over the crest of that, that hoodoo, I guess, of having never made a final. So you'd like to think that now they've done that there's a bit of relief, and it's a matter of, hey, we've got an opportunity now. Let's just go out there and play, and that's the way you'd hope that they will operate. They will, no doubt, if they get on a bit of a roll, that emotion will come in, and you can generally see it in the field with South Africa, whether they're on top, or you can definitely see if they're not. So it's one of those games where no one side's going to dominate the whole game. So are South Africa able to just hold that emotion and stay with it? That'll be really important. India have so many different weapons to fire at South Africa, to try and win the game. And I think that's probably where I see them slightly ahead. And they're used to playing big games. They are, sure, they've lost some, but they are used to playing, massive games and having high expectations. I think India are slightly ahead, but South Africa, I'm sure, are very much worthy finalists.
Shamsi talked about the balance in this South Africa side, and perhaps that other teams rely heavily on one or two players to come good. And he was saying after that semi-final, look, there's a real harmony in our team at the moment. Is that a key, Mitch, for South Africa?
Oh, massively. Yeah. Sometimes when you go into a final and one player's been scoring all your runs or taking all your wickets and they don't have a good day, it actually affects the whole confidence of a side. And South Africa throughout this tournament, everyone's chipped in. I think it's been really nice to see Anrich Nortje get back to form. Rabada's been great, Shamsi. They've all been well up on the wicket takers list, and that's key. So confidence of all of their bowling unit and their batting unit as well has been significant. De Kock finally got some runs at the top. That was probably one of the missing pieces of the puzzle that they needed to sort out. And I like guys like Tristan Stubbs in that middle order. He seems to be very, very cool and calm under pressure for someone so young. He's kind of become that glue in that middle order to be able to kind of get that top order and middle to lower order, be able to work together and get them to some scores and get them across the line.
Yes, often finals are about matchups, aren't they? And as Mitch is sort of saying as well, it's a guy that can come off. So de Kock, Bumrah, I mean, that's probably one you wanted to talk about, that matchup. Quinton de Kock comes off, it's heavily in favour of South Africa if he gets good runs at the top of the innings.
Yeah, and as Mitch said, he's actually in form. He is one of those streak kind of players. So, once he's down, he can stay down for quite a period of time. And you sort of think, does he know which end of the bat to hold at times? And then, the next day he comes out and he bangs it everywhere, and then he gets on a roll. And once he's got that rhythm of his bat swing and everything, then he, as I said, he can start to find some flow in his batting. So the only challenge, I guess, is Bumrah's a really tough guy to get any flow against because he's so good at changing pace, even with the new ball. And, Quinton de Kock can be a little bit of a one-pace hitter early on in his innings, especially in the power play. He looks to come hard at it. So that will be something that I think Bumrah will look to use. Sure, he might try and angle it in from around the wicket, which I think he'll start with. But then I think the change of pace will be critical for him. Otherwise, Quinny will go after him, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's key. It's a nice matchup to watch and one that's exciting. You're right, the skills that Bumrah possesses probably don't match up well for Quinton de Kock. He matches well up to guys who bang the wicket, go above the stumps and try and bowl straight. So that's probably what Bumrah is going to avoid. He's going to make sure the ball's always going away from him, just in that little bit full of length. So it's a nice little matchup, but there's so many nice matchups. And I think Klaasen is another one where we've got to watch in the middle. We spoke about how good he is against spin. India's definitely going to play three spinners. So how he navigates that middle period is going to be significant.
Yeah, a lot of experience for the South African players in the IPL, better at spin. Just a quick one, guys, before we go. Mitch, who are you picking?
Oh, India, with the canter for mine.
India with a canter. Hess, what do you reckon?
Well, I've said South Africa all the way along for the last 2 months, so I better not change
He's
it.
got to
last
balance
minute.
it.
I think India are favourites, but I'll go with South Africa.
Yeah, he's balanced it. OK, look, I can't pick it. I think they're both teams in fantastic form, but it's going to be a fantastic World Cup final. Mitch, Hess, thanks very much indeed, gents, as always. So we look forward to that this weekend. South Africa and India in the T20 Cricket World Cup final live on Sky Sport. Until next time on No Boundaries, ka kite.